Welcome to Bridging the Gap to Connections, the talk show, where we begin by sharing your stories and spotlighting your shine. Hey everyone, welcome back to Bridging the Gap to Connections. This is Darla Williams here, and today is Tuesday, talking books and art and much more. As we begin developing and continuing on, I do not have my co-host today, but I am looking for other co-hosts to work with as well. Today, I am going to actually take a moment and look at and frame this show on some of the work that I have done. I know that lately I've really been looking at the featuring everyone else, but sometimes we have to feature ourselves. So I want to take this show today and share a little bit more about me. How does everyone begin to know who Darla is and what Darla is about? One of the many things that I do is children's books. I write and illustrate them, and it's actually a great passion. I enjoy the creativity, the stories, and the ability to actually create the illustrations, images, and stuff that come along in it. So let me tell you a little backstory. Backstory is, as I've always told the people in my family, a lot about, little stories at bedtime and different things like that. I've always included story time and after dinner, right before bed, and sometimes in the morning to get people motivated. So stories have been something I've used to help with coaching. Sometimes I use a story from my life or a story that I've heard that is going to be relevant to the situation that helps others to continue moving forward after trauma or other things in their life. So really, truly, I have learned that all of us have a story. Who are we? What are we about? And why are we about it? Myself, personally, over the years, I spent a lot of time in art for other people. I've painted signs, murals, I've done drawings, paintings, and as well as what I have as an artist, I've done something called soul art, where I do energetic work with people to find out what their image is for themselves. And I do a soul painting through the energies that come out. Sometimes it's bears, sometimes it's butterflies, sometimes it's phoenixes, sometimes it's a lion. We've got all kinds of different types of characters and things that come out of it that really represent us to our core. But today, because we're doing this one on talking about books and illustrations, I figured what better way to allow y'all to know a little bit more about me. In 2017, I decided to start a journey. I journeyed into publication over the year and actually landed my first published book in February of 2018, but I had started in April, the end of March, beginning of April of 2017. In 2017, I had a nephew of mine, one of my sister's sons, who said, "Aunt Darla, we're kids. We like pictures. Where are the pictures? You draw and paint for everyone else. Where are ours?" That question changed the trajectory of my entire life. And I have to say that it has been an intense journey ever since. One that has filled my life with people from all over the world, that has given me the opportunity to travel all over the US. I have had the opportunity to meet people that I would have never even expected to be in rooms with, and that I continue to actually bring on the show. It is absolutely amazing to see how one decision can totally change your life. Where for myself personally, I had worked many, many years in retail sales, grocery, and convenience store work. I spent a lot of time behind desks answering phones and tending to people. I did home health. I was never satisfied in anything. I was comfortable doing all the things that I did, but I was never satisfied. I was never in a place where I went, this brings me content. I was always looking for more. I always wanted to be more. I became my own artist in 2010 with a business called Quigley Artistic Designs, which due to divorce, I had to change and close it out. And later on came out with DRW Designs. DRW Designs is my name, Darla R. Williams. It's just shortened. And what do? I design things. So when I have a situation with my nephews saying, hey, we'd like some pictures, I decided to take a journey into finding out how to go into publication. Like I said, being a grocery store clerk, an office clerk, somebody that was working in the office and maintaining the front end of a grocery store, that's not the thing that you normally think about every day. How do I publish a book? So I began a deep dive, and Google became my friend. I started asking every day different questions and finding different resources and information along the way. I ultimately published with a company called Friesen Press, and what they are is my printing press. They bind the book and hold a portion of the copyright due to they have it inserted the text to image and bound the book. So I have a partnership with a company that took care of me, edits. If I needed illustrations, they would have done it, but I already had them. They uploaded and inserted text to imaging. They did all of my details when it came to being listed to 40,000 online bookstores world round. I was then able to go into the opportunity to actually be able to do print on demand. I can order large amounts of books and sell directly. I can put them in brick and mortar. I can do every format from ebook to paperback to hardback and everything in between. I didn't have just the limitations of one location to find a book, but 40,000 online around the world. When I decided to do this, I wanted it to be something that I could also transfer later into being able to sell the book project to publishing companies that wanted to actually purchase my books, but I want to finish the trilogy of the books so that I have all of them, the stats and everything behind them, and everything else. This year, in April, Sammy's Wish, which is the second book that I published in 2020, made it to the book festival in LA. So the Los Angeles Festivals of Books, my book made it this year. There are so many different opportunities that I've had, from having booths, standing on stages, talking to people in little offices, and being in spaces like the public libraries. I've spoken in many libraries already, and I have had the privilege to read to children across the US in different places. I have been privileged enough to go and do several book signings with Barnes and Noble, and having a schedule to do more in the future. I want to go ahead and do that with the next book as well. I'm in the process of creating the third book for the trilogy right now. I have the manuscript completely done, ready, edited. I just need a polish edit, and then I will, which I have Friesen Press to do. So I already have a company to do it, as well as putting it to bind and print as soon as the illustrations are done. I've already begun the cover design for that one and some of the illustrations that go within the book. So without any further, I want to talk a little bit about Casey's Adventure. And Casey's Adventure is a story about a caterpillar. It says, one day he decides He's ready for an adventure and climbs down to explore the forest floor. Along the way, he encounters many different animals and insects. One morning, a strange sound wakes him up. He's so curious about it that he sets off even further to find out what it might be. What he finds is a bigger surprise than anything he could imagine. Casey's adventure is a tale of exciting new experiences, sights, sounds, and friendship. Join Casey on his adventure and see if you can guess what that strange sound might be. A little bit more about me. When doing these books, literally, I find joy and peace in creating. One of the biggest things for me is therapeutically, I have to say, was the avenue of finding drawing and writing and creating the two. And that's probably a lot of the reasons why I made up stories and stuff for the kids in my family. What happened was when I published this book in February of 2018, what actually happened was it wasn't so much about whether or not I was going to get sales. It was about making sure that I provided the opportunity, one, to show the children in my family that if you have a dream, that you can do it, no matter how hard it is, that you can take each step each and every day. So I began putting poster boards up on the wall, having goals, doing what I need to do, making payment plans, and tending to the details and allowing the kids to fill in all the little spaces so that they could get excited about how close we were coming to putting the books in their hands. That was what the biggest dream was for me. The biggest part was actually taking this idea that I could see in my mind and bringing it to life, allowing it to become the book that I could begin turning the pages and actually telling the story to the kids with the images along the way. I'll never forget the first time the kids saw the books. They cried. They cried because I did it. One of the things that have happened a lot of times in many people's families' lives, they don't always land and actually follow through. Sometimes promises get made and children get disappointed. And the children in my family found the way to crying with joy because Aunt Darla really did make the book just for them. I made it for them in hopes that other families would enjoy the story as much as my family has enjoyed it. I'll give you just a little bit more of a taste of Casey's adventure. I don't want to read the whole story and take up a lot of the time because I'm really here just to talk about the books overall. So Casey's adventure. And give you just a little bit of time to look at the picture. So if you're showing it to little ones, if you got your littles nearby, you might want to grab them, let them look, and see the story to see if they like it. Casey the caterpillar has always lived in the leaves of the plant. He has spent his life climbing up and down along each branch, eating as much as he wants. One of the things I loved about creating these stories is I could remember as a child looking at images and thinking, man, why don't people finish the picture? And if I thought that as a kid, there's probably a lot of other kids wondering why images aren't completed. I noticed that there's a lot of times in children's books that the art just sort of runs off the page. It's incomplete imaging. It's sort of an idea. It's whimsical and wispy across there, but not finished. It's not total art. And as a child, I would have appreciated books with more full art. So that was what I did. One morning when Casey woke up and the sun was bright, as he looked around, he could see the forest floor. Now there's a place I've never been before. I think it's time to go explore. So Casey ate a big meal of his favorite leaves, and he slowly climbed down the stalk of the plant he lived in. Once Casey was on the ground, he looked up, and even further up. Wow, this is really a big place. It looks so exciting. I can't wait to see what's ahead in today's adventure. And I'm going to go ahead and leave it right there just so you have a little bit of an idea of what Casey's adventure is about. It's literally a young caterpillar going off in its first little journey out into the big world. And it's about the sights he sees, the sounds he hears, and the friends he makes along the way. Doesn't that sound a lot about like what we do each and every day? It's a great little story that you and your family can cuddle up together, read together, and actually remember and explore, maybe sharing stories of when you were a kid, letting your children know that it's absolutely normal to have a great big imagination and begin building the world in which they want to live. Sammy's Wish, which came out in 2020. Sammy, who has a wish, with a little help from Sammy's friend, Casey, and the two set out on a new adventure. Along the way, they find others who play music too, join them in building new friendships, creating new sounds, and learning teamwork as they also learn how to make Sammy's wish come true. So, Sammy's Wish is the second book in my series. The nice part is if you get Sammy's Wish and that's a book that you stumble across and find, and that's what you order, it can stand alone. It tells the story as a story by itself. But the nice part is it is a trilogy, and if you want to know how Sammy and Casey actually meet, you can read it in the first book, Casey's Adventure. But to continue the story, what happens after they meet? And what does Sammy really want? It was a lovely evening after Sammy's concert. And Sammy and Casey sat under the old oak tree. In the cool of the shade, both were talking about how wonderful everything had been. Casey talked about his adventure, all the sights he had seen, the sounds he had heard, and how it all led him to finding Sammy, his new best friend. Sammy shared with Casey that every day he went to play his banjo in that rusted out can near the old oak tree. It is so amazing how so many came out to hear me play, he said. And he thanked Casey for being such a wonderful friend and for his help in bringing it all together. Sammy was so happy that everyone had liked his music. Casey, he asked, would you like to know what I wish? What do you wish? Casey asked. I wish to find others who'd like to play music. I'd like to start a band. Wow, Casey said. I think that wish is really grand. Just as Casey finished talking, they heard a voice high above their heads. As they looked up in the tree, they could see a spider dropping down from a branch on a strand of web. So here was them talking about Sammy's, which is the snail's wish, to Casey. And this is where I'm going to stop. This was the voice they heard from high above their head. It was a spider dropping down from a branch on a strand of her web. So I'm going to stop with those two there, just giving you a little insight. I am a coach and I help people with trauma, but I'm also an author, an illustrator, an artist. I'm a networker. I have so many different hats that I wear every single day. I enjoy my life. And I will tell you that when I began the journey into the books, I had no idea the amazing life it was going to open up for me. So that's a little bit about me, the books that I've written. And like I said, I have the third one in the making right now. That book has a brand new character. As you already could see, there was another one in here. There are several different characters all the way along the way that you'll find. Some bee brothers, a cricket, and a spider, and just some wonderful music melodies and symphonies that are created along the way. And taking it off into the third book is such a discovery. It's the travel, it's the experience, it's moving on up, it's finding the way to rise above the challenges. And how many times do we have to, how many times are we looking for great ways to teach our children about collaboration, teamwork, and the opportunity to help one another? That is what the books are all about. It's about finding way in life, creating a dream, and bringing it to life. I hope that you all enjoy the stories as much as the kids in my family do, and as much as I enjoyed creating each and every image along the way. And writing the stories was just absolutely fun. It allowed me to get out of myself, the regular everyday, the mundane of stuff, and put me in a place where I could just be fun, free-flowing, and creative. It is one of the best things you can do for yourself, is finding the way to release your own personal creativity. So until next time, this is Darla Williams signing off. Bye for now.